Good morning. This is a Troy Community Land Bank special meeting on April 12th, 2022. It's 8:03 a.m. Madam Chairperson, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Heather King, I'm here. Suzanne Spellin,
Here.
Albert Watson,
Here.
Brian Barker,
Here.
Andrew Cooper,
Here.
Jeanette Nicholson,
Here.
Aaron Lozier, John Carmelo. He is here.
Sorry, here, I was muted.
Aaron
Christina
is here
Maribel.
too.
Is he here
Present.
too? Okay. Patricia Riley. She's here as well.
Yeah.
All right, all are present.
Full house.
Full house. Mr. Tazi, we have a very full agenda today. So I'm going to let you and Kate go ahead and just move things forward with what we need to get done today.
Well, we have Ellen Walther from Bonadeo, who's going to present the final audit. That's
Yes,
first on the
good morning.
agenda.
Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. Hang on one second. I'm going to share my screen if I can. Tony, can you enable screen sharing, or Kate?
Kate has the control.
Good. I just gave you a host, Alan.
Okay. Can you guys see that now? There's a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. My name's Alan Walther. I'm a partner with the Bonadeo Group. We are the auditors for the Troy Community Land Bank. We have completed our audit of the
Some
land
of
bank.
us are on phone only.
We've completed our audit of the land bank's financial statements for 2021, and I just prepared a brief PowerPoint presentation to walk through the results of the audit. So we issued an unmodified opinion on the land bank's financial statements. That is the highest level of assurance that we can give. We did not identify any material weaknesses in internal controls, and there were no compliance findings. With regard to our required communications, there were no new accounting policies that were adopted, and the application of existing policies was not changed during 2021. There were no transactions entered into by the land bank for which there was a lack of authoritative guidance, and all significant transactions have been recognized in the correct period. All estimates were evaluated and considered to be reasonable to the financial statements. No significant difficulties in performing the audit. No material audit adjustments were required. There were no disagreements with management. We are not aware that management consulted with other accountants, and our discussions with management were in the normal course of our professional relationship, and our responses were not a condition of our retention. With regard to the financial statements, some of the financial highlights, the statement of net position, which is on page 7 of the report, if you have it in front of you, the net position of the land bank as of December 31st, 2021 was $170,000. Some of the highlights here, your total assets as of December 31st, $972,000, of which cash was $43,000, grant receivable was $306,000, and property held for sale was $606,000. Your total liabilities were $801,000, of which accounts payable were $100,000, loans payable $365,000, and then unearned grant revenue was $306,000. Your statement of revenue and expenses, which is on page 8, total revenue for the year was $374,000. Sales of property were $81,000, and grant revenue was $289,000. Your total expenses were $599,000. You had non-operating revenue, which was the forgiveness of your PPP loans of 35,000, and you had an overall decrease in your net position of 190,000. With regard to your statement of cash flows, which is on page 9, your cash increased by $38,000 during the year. $246,000 of cash was used in operations. 9,000 was used in capital, and non-capital financing provided 292,000. We did issue a management letter. There was one disbursement that we noted in our testing, greater than $10,000, that did not have the 2 required signatures. And with regard to Paris reporting, we did note that there was a need to post the minutes to the Paris website. That is the extent of my presentation, unless there's any questions from the board members.
I'm good. Does anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
So we have in front of, go ahead.
The property held for sale, how did we determine the valuation for the lots and for the buildings, and how did we come up with that number?
Boy, that happened in a variety of ways, Aaron. Some of them were appraised values. Some of them were based on assessed values. Some of them were the result of a kind of a formula a couple of years ago that I crafted to try to come up with some sort of reasonable value. So it's all kind of a mishmash depending on what information we had available to be able to determine it.
Okay, so we don't have so we're not holding one standard for property valuation. We're using a variety of methods.
Yeah, so we're basically using a method whereby the most authoritative value is what we use, and then we go down from there. So an appraisal is the highest order we can get. An assessment is usually the next order down. A lot of times those are not really accurate to the property. And in those instances, then I have this formula based on previous sales that I had 2 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, used as a formula to try to come to some kind of a reasonable value.
Okay.
Sometimes we use brokers' values of opinion.
Okay. And then the next question I have is that can you go into a little more detail about our unearned grant revenue of $306,000 for the year in 2021?
Or what do you mean, a breakdown of it?
So we have grant receivable of $306,000. That's money that is coming in and not yet realized.
No, that's
No, that's
Yeah.
all enterprise community funding that came in from round 4 that was expended by and large for the projects that we renovated.
Okay,
Yes.
very good.
293,000 of that was acquisition of
Vesta.
I'm sorry, that's 2022. Take that back.
Very cool. And then the last one of accounts payable of $100,000. That seems to be very high. I know that we're talking about the year end right now. So can you give a breakdown of who those notes are payable to?
Off the top of my head, I can't, but I can get it to you.
Okay.
It's not unusual when you're dealing with a lot of contractors. Why do you think it's high?
$100,000 in liabilities for the projects that are outstanding. I don't know if that includes engineering. I don't know if that includes current contractors. I'm just looking for a breakdown of where we stood at the end of the year and why why the number is the number.
Yeah, I can. Let me try to commit myself to getting that to you by the end of the week, and I'll circulate to the full board so everyone sees the same. How's
Awesome.
that?
Tony, I would just be careful because you don't want to cause confusion unless you know exactly what constitutes the 100,000 in that audit.
An awful round number.
As it's presented, because that's the auditor's number and what they observed during the audit. So I don't know that we know the exact detail behind that. And I'm just, do what you can do, but I just, it's not, it's,
the accounts payable should be on the day, which should be on the year-end day of December 31st. So there should be a pretty easy breakdown of who's payable, who on the 31st.
Yeah, Tony, I'll get that schedule for you.
All right. And we get
Thank you,
straight
Alan.
from the horse's mouth.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
get you
you.
the support. That's not a problem.
that would be great.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank
You're
you,
only
Alan.
talking about one day. I mean, it could have changed the next day.
It did, but yeah.
So that's, yeah, so
It is as of, yes, that's a good point.
that's one
It's
day. Yeah.
As of December 31st,
Yeah.
2021.
Okay, thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Alan, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for another fun audit.
Another fun audit. We'll see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Let's pull up the resolution here. So we have in front of us a resolution to approve the 2021 audited financials. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion. Albert.
Second.
Brian second. Heather King, I vote yes. Suzanne Spellin,
Yes.
Albert Watson made the motion. Brian Barker made the second. Andrew Cooper,
Yes.
Jeanette Nicholson,
Yes.
Aaron Lozier,
Yes.
John Carmelo,
Yes.
Christina Maribel,
Yes.
Patricia Riley.
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
my
that's
call
okay.
dropped.
It's okay. All right. So we have in front of us a resolution to approve the 2021 Paris report. Kate, Tony, do you want to explain that a little bit to us?
Yes, we're gonna have to table that because we needed the audit numbers entered to post Paris to the system.
Okay,
So we're just gonna skip over that for now. But for those of you who don't know what the Paris report is, we do have to report to the ABO annually what our audited financial statements say, the projects we've done, who our board of directors were, and that they've completed the Paris training and also signed all the necessary conflict of interest forms, all of that. So, we should have, I can print out a copy once we're getting close to submit it and we can circulate that. I just like to have the board review it and understand it because that's your report to the state of New York, right? So usually I like the board to take a look at that and understand it. So, but for right now, we have to enter the final numbers, so it's not complete.
okay. So that is going to be tabled. Thank you.
But before we move on, could I ask, what's the deadline on that? And so are we going to need, once done, to have an out of typical scheduled meeting to approve?
Well, it's usually due April 1st, but because the audit, it was late, we couldn't file it. So right now it's past due, but that's not real major at this point because we were waiting for our audit and we just couldn't do it. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So, but
I mean,
we're gonna do it.
it's okay for it to wait till the next scheduled meeting likely, or are we going to have to do something?
Well, generally, you don't need to approve it to be filed. I just wanted you to see it.
Ah, okay.
So we normally file it right after the audit comes in and Tony and I take care of it. But it's important. A lot of my other clients review it as well, just, to see what's in it because, the board should know what we're reporting to the state of New York. But once it is submitted, you can view it online as well, right at the ABO website. Anybody can.
Right.
So, but we won't need a special meeting for that.
Okay. Thanks.
I do have to get Albert signed up on the Paris reporting system, because Albert, you'll have to go in and basically sign off on some of the financials. We can walk you through that.
Okay,
They make us enter the audited financial, the final statement. So it'll match the audited financial statements for the end of the year. So, and would they ask us to upload a copy of that as well? So that's the financial piece.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, Kate, I'm gonna run this one. This is all yours. The resolution to approve the ARPA funds subrecipient agreement with the city of Troy is currently on the table.
Okay, wow, we made it. So you
Where's the holy
probably,
water?
yeah, you probably received a copy, you should have received a copy of the subrecipient agreement with the city of Troy. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of compliance here. There's a lot of approvals that are gonna be needed by the finance committee and the board of directors. There's a requirement in here for an added additional federal audit. I'm not quite sure what that means, but we'll find out. For the use of the funds, there's significant reporting requirements. There's significant insurance requirements, some of which are beyond the insurance we already carry. So we're going to have to look into that. The record retention, a lot of it we do already, but we're going to have to set up a better system than we have, and some forms and things in order to report properly on the grant expenditures. Basically, it requires us to indemnify and defend the city of Troy and the U.S. Treasury. There's some environmental indemnification provisions in there as well with regard to projects. Again, we're going to look into environmental riders on our insurance to prop up our ability to cover something should it go wrong. There's a couple questions that I need to find out with regard to prevailing wage and apprenticeship programs, which are also required for any projects that we do. But it's likely prevailing wage will not apply because it's not a public project. We're just working on housing. But I have to, with regard to the Legacy Cities grant, I have to specifically take a look at that and see if that's going to qualify as a public project. The total amount that we're getting is $1 million, and the disbursement schedule is also attached to, I think it was Exhibit A perhaps. And I think I should get it in front of me. Some of the $100,000 in liabilities is attached in our budget to this subrecipient agreement, plus among other things that will all get paid once we receive the money. So the sum of that 100,000 and what was payable is probably attached in that budget. You can see who it is. And it's, more than that we have to pay once we get the money. I'm trying to think of what else. It's just very heavy on compliance. And I said to the city comptroller that it's not easy. It's not going to be easy for recipients to do all this work, but I suppose it's worth the $1 million, and we don't necessarily have any other funding sources. So I recommend the approval based upon that, and I will do my best to work up a compliance program and a reporting program so that we can follow the terms of the contract and report to the city as they've requested. Any questions?
I think we're capable of it, Kate.
CFO, we will.
Yes, it's a lot.
We'll just see each other more often.
Yes.
So I have I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of questions. I
Yeah.
won.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Is
Andrew.
it, is
Andrew.
disbursement of funds contingent on establishing all of the compliance first? And so is there likely to be a cash flow issue if we commit to projects start? I mean, again, I don't know what all the, the step-by-step process will be. But the
Sure.
first thing that occurs to me that could be particularly challenging is if moving at the speed of government, and reporting and compliance and review and audit, and at what point do funds flow, and do we have to do everything up front? And is that something that will be, before we then get any money? Or how does that, I don't know if this is a clear question, but I'm
Well, you'll
curious
feel-
generally how that's
and-
going to work and if it will be particularly difficult.
Sure.
So-
So
Yeah, Andrew, there's the initial disbursement, and then go ahead, Kate.
So it's all going to happen at the same time. to the best of my ability. I've been working, and Tony will tell you, the two of us have been working the last month extremely hard
You far
with the
more than
city
me.
to get it done. Once you approve it today, Tony will sign it. We will get the original copies to the city. I expect, and again, it's just a ballpark, but I expect within 1 to 2 weeks of us returning the contract, they will get us the first disbursement. Part of the requirements of the city were to hire a CFO, which is the best possible thing we could do at this point to alleviate some of the financial management pieces from Tony's plate to carry out more of the project side. It also is going to save us a significant amount of money that from using Bowers at this point, and who's just doing the bookkeeping. And I'm hoping the CFO will also be able to help with the reporting, right? Here's the expenditures. Here's, budget to actual, like we really are going to have to follow this grant. Like there's going to be a separate financial just on this grant. So there's that. There's an entire 47-page guide that I have to review for the compliance and the reporting. So I'm going to work on that and get it in place as soon as possible. What I think will happen is we do have insurance payments we need to make relatively quickly. I think the finance committee will probably meet as quickly as possible to approve that expense and then pay those. And then stop and, meet again to review, okay, what else, there's payables here, we have to pay, and begin to approve the pay down of that debt. So, it almost all has to happen at the same time. And I'm going to do my very best to come up with what that policy and procedure is. Because, the city, it's contingencies the city also puts on us, to have the grant. So
I have a couple of questions and comments. It's my understanding that ARPA funds can't be used to hire staff or CFO position. So will the CFO that we will be hiring be on a service basis? Will they be directly affiliated with the Troy Community Land Bank? Can you explain a little bit more about that setup?
well,
And also that the CFO position is required by the federal disbursement. It's not being required by the city.
I'm confused of where you would have gotten that information because it's incorrect. So we are getting operating reimbursement funds for the COVID period, which covers operating costs, which would cover staff or contracted folks that we would hire. So it would cover that. We also will have additional revenue from properties as well. So I'm confused as to where that was coming from. And the city itself wanted us to have a financial person in place in order to handle not just this grant, but the other things that we have to manage, because as you know, Tony's by himself and he runs the whole organization.
Yep.
And that is daunting, and it's just, there needs to be more oversight, and there's no internal controls really that are any significant, policy and procedure where you would diversify the CFO function away from the executive director, and then the treasurer, of course, would be the third prong in that. So not only does it, improve our internal controls, but we have somebody who has experience to do all the budgeting and the financial reporting and all of the things that Tony just does not have time to do.
Yep,
And
understood.
The expertise.
This is coming from a member of the city that it's part of the federal department rules. Another option is the land bank needs a qualified third party or entity with experience with NFPs or quasi government groups. So this is
wait,
just
say it
coming-
again. You lost me. Say it again.
It's the federal department rules coming from a member of the city. There are another options as a land bank needs a qualified third party individual entity with experience with NFPs or quasi government groups. That's the reason why. That's the reason why I'm asking.
I really don't know what that has to do with anything.
That relates to the CFO position. That
There's also a project manager position that was approved by the council as well for the LCAP, because it's all legitimate expenses.
I understand.
Okay, no, I'm trying to understand what your question is, because I'm not sure at this point.
I'm just asking and saying if there's any conflict, if there are funds coming in from ARPA to pay staff payroll for a CFO or a project manager or any other position.
Well, none of it's payroll, and it is eligible. And part of the reason why it took so long to get ARPA funds was that myself and Tony and Heather at times, the mayor's office and the council were reviewing the budget we put in and the requests we made to make sure that they could use ARPA funds on that.
Excellent.
So yes, and part of the oversight that the finance committee will have, and ultimately it should come to the board every month as we move through the grant, is to make sure as well, just, the contract actually puts it on us. That's another nice piece of the contract, Andrew, that says, we have the burden of making sure that the expense is reimbursable, is valid use of ARPA funds.
Good.
So Andy P. from the city, the comptroller, myself, Corp Counsel, we really took a hard look at this, and that's why it took so long.
Good. Then the
So
next piece,
I think we're good.
then the next piece comes into our insurance payments. I understand that the majority of them are annual payments. I had brought up to some others to find different ways to go on to different monthly or quarterly payment plans. That way we don't have this large nut that we need to pay out every single April. Is it still an option for having a long background in insurance, while knowing that these insurance policies are coming up now in April? Now is a good time for us to take a look at not only different payment options that are available, but also look to shop our insurance, especially since we may need additional liability, as you had talked about before, for environmental concerns, and even consider consolidating these different policies. Because right now I believe we have 3 different agencies that we work with currently. And by consolidating them, we can get premium credits with either one agency or one overall company.
So
Well,
Aaron,
I know
did
you don't have the background, the historical background, but there's very few insurance companies that will even insure land banks. We talked to all of them. The same companies insure most of the New York State land banks. And other than, and I know Tony's looked into one of them that would do a payment plan, but they charge interest and you wind up paying more for it. If it's a cash flow issue, I think we could look at it. But there's really no place to go requote it, because we've already been through, there's only a couple companies that do it. And you're kind of stuck with what the rate is because of the high liability of what we do. That's not, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I say that's not to say we shouldn't talk with them, and we do. Finance committee does review it every year. But we're kind of stuck with it. just because there's not a lot of companies that do it and it's high cost. And, you know, we know who those players are, and we've switched, I think once, Tony, right, into a different insurance from one company to another, but there's only like two companies, right, Tony? I mean, there's not any place to
Yeah.
go.
We switched from Brown and Brown in Syracuse to Tenike, and when we made that switch, we had some others that were hoping to become, you know, our insurance brokers, and they actually ran into a lot of problems because I guess they didn't have the capability to take on some of the insurance carriers, so they couldn't submit a proposal to us, which is how we ended up with Tenike. But you're right. Brown and Brown and Tenike are kind of, I guess they're large enough that they can work with all these varied carriers. And there are many that cannot, for whatever reason.
Yeah, the majority of insurance brokers are able to be appointed with any insurance company within the state of New York. I'll tell you that there are many brokers that work with the Mid-Hudson Insurance Group that's able to offer builder's risk on properties just like the ones that we have now, that are able to go on multi-payment plans that don't charge any interest, that can even do nonprofit liability for the type of liability that we would require, including workers' compensation, DBL, and anything else that we may need. So I'm asking that we take a second look and even take a look on an annual basis, because
I think Aaron, I think this is more for a finance committee meeting, if you'd like to attend the next one of those to make this suggestion, and not necessarily for the related to the resolution to accept the subrecipient agreement.
Send me an invite.
But we would be always. So no, this is definitely some good information, and we should have the conversation, but at that time, if that's okay with you.
Sounds great. Love to get my foot in the door.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the subrecipient agreement with the city of Troy?
Hold on. Do we have any other questions before we do that? I just want to make sure everybody is good.
Yeah, I got a question about record retention. Where are we going to keep these records? Is it going to be in Tony's office, or?
My initial compliance plan in my head, that's not on paper yet, is there will be 3 points of reconciliation. So yes, as the record keeper and the only staff we have, Tony would have one file. Our CFO, whoever that turns out to be, would also have another file. And because of my involvement and at the request of the mayor's office, I will also have a file. And because I'll probably, be doing a lot of the compliance and be part of that audit anyway. So we intend to keep 3 points of record keeping specifically on this grant.
Will we be able to consider cloud storage?
I wouldn't do that. I would
Why?
not do that.
AWS provides a
You need
great
physical
cloud service system.
You need to have physical files. And with my background, that's
And then if three buildings burn to the ground, then there's nothing.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think, and that's a larger discussion on document retention, where we should be electronically backing up at least the paper that we have. That's, makes a lot of sense and is fairly easy to do in a cloud. I mean, it's pretty,
and
but I think
fireproof file cabinets too, because we used to have them at Pioneer.
Correct. Yeah. So let's put that in finance/governance, and you're absolutely right. We should be doing that. But I also think once a CFO comes on as well, they cloud, like I have a cloud, they're going to have a cloud, I mean, there's double backup, but I think what it is we've been so small for so long, and Tony has done everything, that it's his computer and or in the land bank office where we keep those records. And it does seem prudent that we would probably want to back up, you know, that his computer and or put all corporate documents in the cloud. Okay, where are we?
I have just one follow-up. I don't know if it's even a question, but it might be. And perhaps this is related to Aaron's comment about records and backups. So committing to this, which, you know, I fully support that. My only concern that I can think of at the moment is there any or what risk there could be of us failing to be compliant and or somehow not following through? I mean, my first thought is that, well, no, we do that. We just do whatever we have to do to make it work. But is there any scenario wherein like we start this process and commit and then somehow I don't know, it all falls apart? I hate to even put that out there, but I'm just kind of curious. Worst case scenario type of thing, right? Like the 3 buildings burning down. Yeah.
So failure is not an option. That's the first thing I'll say. The second thing is, and you know, that's what I wanted you all to really thoroughly understand. I'm going to be involved significantly in the compliance and sort of take that piece on, because this is a heavy lift for any nonprofit organization, and we have to do it right. And you know, this isn't a knock on the city of Troy or anything, but they're still trying to figure out what information to collect from us. And I've even been working with them on what I think that is, right? So it's kind of a work in progress, but there is some federal guidance. They provided a guide that I'm going to take a look at. They are going to require a semi-annual progress report. And the way that this works usually with my other clients is that, you know, the progress report and what we're doing comes from staff. The financial piece of it and the expenditures and the backup for that comes from the CFO. Then it's reviewed by council to make sure that it's all compliant and the reporting, you know, we've covered everything and we've put it in a way, you know, that they want to receive it and understand it. So that's an entire process that we're going to have to quarterback with the oversight of the finance committee and also the board as a whole every month approving those expenses. So it's going to be a lot of work. I'm going to be involved in it. I'm sure the CFO is going to be involved in it. It won't just be Tony, because we're going to have to. So.
Good thing anyway.
Yeah, that's more or less what I expected to hear. I just at times in my life, especially with multiple levels of government involved, sometimes things start one way and then they change and suddenly, well, no, that's not how things work. And as of 2 years ago, you should have done it this way.
Right.
And that's like the nightmare scenario. And usually things eventually, you know, can get sorted out, but sometimes it takes years for, you know, and that was my original concern of like, well, what if we're committed to projects and then this whole process stalls and where does that leave us? But I know what you're saying, where we just have to keep working at it and everyone's committed to making it work.
The good news is this.
I don't know.
We spent several weeks, again, going back to what can ARPA be used for, right? And the good news is, while we had put in for over $1 million and what we would use it for, once we started to put that all through the ARPA funnel and what could be covered and what, you know, you couldn't use it for, it boiled down to LCAP, Legacy Cities, which is all the soft costs, you know, to prepare for that grant. So architectural services, which you'll see in a minute here, you know, that sort of stuff to get us to the point where we could apply for the Legacy Cities grant, hopefully get that. And then pretty much at that point, the property gets sold to the developer and we're done. So that's a bulk of the expenditures. That's why there's only 2 disbursements, and that it's really just LCAP, right? And the other piece of it and the way, this is all from the Social Security Administration, and the reason why it came down through them was because of COVID recovery. So housing, affordable housing is part of that COVID recovery, helping nonprofits with operating and losses due to COVID. You know, we couldn't sell our properties for quite a while. They couldn't get finished because nobody was working. You know, the high cost now to finish them because of construction. All of that fits under the COVID section of ARPA. So a lot of that money we're recouping. We've already spent it, right? And it's already been vetted by the city and by me that, you know, we can use ARPA funds on that. So while there's a lot of expenditures when it comes down to line items, it's really only two things: COVID recovery and LCAP. And we're not going to be in charge of Legacy Cities development like we were on 791 River. HCR and the developer and CPC are going to go do that. We're just, you know, so it really came down to being oversimplified, which is exactly what we wanted. So that, you know,
Right.
there's no worry that something's not going to get done. The deliverables are pay your bills, operate, do LCAP. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but that's really what it boils down to.
I got a little of that. Thanks.
Andy and I spent, I kid you not, it had to be set 60 or 70 hours over the last month or two, just trying to hammer through this. And it's not just us. I mean, the city's filling their way through other, you know, grant recipients and what they want to do as well. But so here we are. If there's no other questions, Heather, you certainly can take a motion.
Well, I'll make the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Suzanne.
All right, Suzanne. Albert Watson, how do you vote?
I'm good with it.
Brian Barker,
Yes.
Andrew Cooper,
Yes.
Jeanette Nicholson,
Yes.
Aaron Lozier,
Yes.
John Carmelo,
Yes.
Christina Maribel,
Yes.
Patricia Riley.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations. All right, as part of that compliance, we now have a resolution to approve the contract with Alan Makels, CPA, as our CFO. Kate, do you want to run over this?
Sure.
Does anybody have any questions on this?
Just one. How much is he charging?
It's in the proposal. Yeah, I think it's 2,000 something a month, which is almost, if you do the math, 10,000 less than Bowers, who doesn't give us the CFO function, but it's a monthly retainer. I want to say, Tony, was it 2,500 or something like that?
That sounds right. I'm trying to pull it up.
And what that includes is not only the bookkeeping, but the budgeting, payables, like he writes all the checks, takes care of that function.
He presents our financials to us as well, correct?
Yes, at the board meeting.
Board meeting.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, I'm sure.
So we're getting more for less.
Yeah. And I mean,
Okay.
I will say this, though, there might be extra time, obviously, because of ARPA. And, you know, really having to do the extra reporting on that. I don't see it being a ton of time, but I will, you know, put that out there. And then that was one of the things that I was teasing Andy about. I'm like, okay, so you're giving us $1 million, but we need more insurance, we need more staff, and we need more, you know, so the cost of having ARPA, you know, it's still worth it, but, you know, it does require us to have certain things in place, you know, for that.
So just to be clear, this is a monthly retainer. This is not a set fee schedule, so he'll be billing us by the hour.
So
No, it's X dollars a month for all inclusive.
it's worded the fee schedule for the personnel to be signed to this engagement is a monthly retainer of $2,500.
Okay, because you had brought up that he may need to put in additional hours, so that brings up my concern is that this is a monthly retainer. Is he going to be drawing down hourly versus that this is the set fee no matter how many hours he's going to be putting in or not?
No, that's the set fee for everything we discussed, including running payroll as well.
Cool.
And then anything above that would have to be pre-approved, obviously, by the finance committee. But, you know, that would be probably separately, and we'd have to ask him, you know, what he's gonna require for that. But again, you know, Bowers was at close to 35,000,
And refresh my memory, we didn't have time to put out an RFP for this, correct?
well, no, that's not the reason. It's professional services. So
Okay.
you don't have to. But I know Albert he contacted some other folks, so we would have some, you know, comparables, but nobody responded and submitted a proposal. So just by way of background, Al Michaels, he is the CFO for the Albany County IDA, the City of Albany IDA, the Bethlehem IDA. There's local development corps, like he's a public authorities CPA slash CFO. That's what he does. He's been doing it for 30 years. I think he would gel well with the board. I know Tony and Heather and Albert interviewed him. So that, you know, that's kind of his background.
How many does he have on his staff?
4, I think. And one of the guys in particular does property accounting. And some of the things I want to see, you know, if they want to change is tracking our expenses by property and getting a better idea of what our project costs are. We don't really drill down into that right now because that's not what Bowers is about. You know, they're just bookkeepers. So that's my whole point, is that with what a land bank does, just like an IDA or anything else that has property and projects, we really don't have that expertise, and we really need it in order to to financially manage the organization. So, you know, I think whoever we would have hired would have to help us with that, but that's what, you know, he does.
If the firm's gonna be able to break down by property, I'm totally game.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask them about. And, you know, the discussion I had with Tony, and I only mention it here because I think it's important that everyone hear it. Just because we have ARPA and we're doing the legacy cities, this is where it could get away from us if we're not have someone who knows what they're doing and paying attention. Is we got X budget line, let's say, for the architectural services. We get the RFPs back. Okay, great. So-and-so can do it for 50,000. But wait a minute, what's the budget, right? And, you know, if we spend over that budget here, what else would we have to cut back? Because we don't want to be over budget and we have no way to plug that gap. We don't have a ton of revenue. So we really need someone overseeing with the finance committee the actual budget and the use of those funds in a very tight process. And we haven't really been good at that before because we haven't had the expertise. And my hope is now we will.
Are there any other questions?
I did not get this resolution, at least in the attachments I downloaded, from, I thought was the last email from Tony, but there was a series of them. So
Yeah, I didn't.
I'm actually going back through
looked
trying to
back on
find
the
it, but
past couple.
I don't have a copy of it. I don't think so. I don't know that there's any particular details in it that I need to vote on it, but
Let me,
like I didn't know the number either, and I was going to ask that, and but you know what already came up. So
let me pull it up for you. It's
yeah,
no
if you
problem.
could put it on the screen, that would be good.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever got the resolution for this.
It's in the calendar
It's
file.
I was just looking there and I didn't see it. But I could have missed it.
You're right. The resolution's there, but the backup. Um,
I have a question.
the backup didn't merge.
Will he be spending time in our office or everything he does is off-site?
Most of what he will do is off-site, but he's probably going to be meeting with us a lot, specifically on ARPA in person. He's not an employee,
Right.
so.
Okay.
There it is. All right. So the Schedule A is what's most important, the resolution, just as your approval.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the file that I merged with the resolution that I
Yeah,
thought
see,
I
I
included.
sent you fully merged. Everything was fully merged. So here's the fee schedule is a monthly retainer of 2,500, and then he further provided detail about what the scope would be. Al is usually involved in as well in the audits. And that around audit time is a big help to Tony, because basically Al is the one getting him the financial records. It's not Tony running around trying to find the backup. Al is going to have all of that because he's, keeping his own records and managing the organization as well. Usually Al, for the most part, is at every board meeting and or his representative. So, he's going to present your profit and loss balance statement every month, and we'll have already met, with finance committee as well. Sometimes he may even say, all the bills are paid for the month, or these are still payable. He's really going to have that detail knowledge that we've never really had before. And then poor Albert came in and we said, "You're treasurer, congratulations." So, Albert, I'm sure, will be much more better informed as to the day-to-day as well. So that's what we're looking at.
So this is for a year, we're approving services for the calendar year, or is there a timeline on this?
Yeah, as you know, every year we do a housekeeping resolution and we have to renew, all of our, what I call operating contracts. There's me, there's the auditor. So yeah, you would be approving the retainer relationship for a year period. And, quite frankly, when it's month to month like this, if you wanted to cancel it, it's just a 30-day notice. Yeah. Okay, anything else?
I'm going to make the motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Suzanne and Andrew tied. Albert Watson,
Yes.
Brian Barker,
Yes.
Jeanette Nicholson,
Yes.
Aaron Lozier,
Yes.
John Carmelo,
Yes.
Christina Maribel,
Yes.
Patricia Riley.
Yes.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Now we have in front of us, this is related to
Legacy
the
cities.
Legacy City grants. We have 2 resolutions to approve contracts for architectural services.
We are gonna table the one for TAP because they really need to revise their numbers, their proposal. So we're gonna table that one. The second one, we put out an RFP for these services. Part of what, as I mentioned in the ARPA discussion, we are using funds for is to get the properties, the studies, architectural designs, all of it ready for the grant application for Legacy Cities. So we RFP'd out for architectural services. TAP responded and ME Studios responded. And due to the amount of architectural work that needs to be completed, Tony, suggested that, and we probably will, we just need to talk with TAP and get a better proposal down on paper. Hire both of them because there's so much work we want to make, and we got to move fairly quickly to do that. So ME Studios was also a bidder. I believe I attached the contract and their proposal and what they bid. So today, to get started, Tony is seeking your approval of awarding a contract for architectural services for Legacy Cities to ME Studios pursuant to the contract and their proposal I attached.
Yep. Kate, the chief financial officer is still on my screen.
Oh, the PowerPoint.
Yes. No, there we go. Thank you.
Hi. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on this? Was that a
Let's do it.
yes? Okay. So Jeanette, do I take that as a motion to approve?
Yes.
Do I have a second? I'll
Second.
second. All right. Who was that?
Christina.
Christina, thank you. Heather King, I vote yes. Suzanne Spellin. Did we lose Suzanne?
No, sorry, it was muted. Yes.
Okay. Albert Watson,
Yes.
Brian Barker,
Yes.
Andrew Cooper,
Yes.
Aaron Lozier,
Yes.
John Carmelo,
Yes.
Patricia Riley.
Yes.
Okay. So I believe that is all we have on the agenda today for our special meeting. I want to thank everybody for taking the time. Is there, and out of your schedule, Kate, do you want to give us, and Tony, is there the next steps here? Is there anything that we should be aware of? There's an A&D meeting today at 3:30. The next board meeting, and that's April 27th, correct?
I think that's what makes sense,
Yep.
given schedules.
And hopefully we'll have some sales to approve, contracts to award.
Hey, Kate,
All
I got one question. I was flipping through the document for the ARPA funds. So we have to use this money, but within a certain time period, right?
Yeah, but I'm not worried at all.
Yeah, I just saw that in there. It's just, yeah.
It's a couple years actually we have,
yeah.
but for the most part, we'll probably spend all of it this year.
Okay.
And that's when you spend 750,000 within a 12-month period, it subjects you to the audit, a federal audit. And I don't even know what that means. Is it a paper audit? Like we have to do another report? Do they send the feds in with a badge? Like I don't, and even the city doesn't know what that means. So I have a feeling like most municipal things, I'll wind up knowing more about it than they do just from researching it. Like, okay, what do we got to do? So, I don't think that that's going to be an issue. In fact, the first disbursement pretty much will be spent probably within 60 days. And then the legacy cities, like I said, is a majority of what's left. And we do have to move fairly quickly on that. So.
I just saw it in there.
Yeah.
All right, unless there's anything else, I'm going to make the motion to adjourn.
Need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Suzanne. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Listen, thank you again, everybody, for taking the time. This
Yeah,
was
here,
a big meeting today. And thanks to Tony and every member for, especially Kate, for all your hard work. All right.
We're gonna
Talk to you guys
get
later.
there. Yep.
Yeah.
Great day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.